नहीं वो तो उस वक्त किया था क्योंकि दो चीजें एक वक्त दिखानी थी, आज वो अरेंजमेंट नहीं है। हाँ जी, और मुझे तो बताओ भाई, शुरू कर रहा हूँ। Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A warm welcome to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to our viewers on Facebook. Assalamu alaikum, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you, wherever you are. I am Tahir Sultan, the Chief Executive of Pakistan Society of Civil Engineers. Again, thank you that you have taken all the trouble today to come here to listen to the technical lecture being hosted by Pakistan Society of Civil Engineers. Now, before I come to tell you what is the lecture and who is the speaker, I would again like to request all of you that you should come forward and involve yourself in the activities of the society by joining the society and by giving your input to the society. Now, how can you give your input? You join the society, then we are now going to form the committees for various activities. So you people can come and join the committees and work for the Pakistan Society of Civil Engineers. In the meantime, you can contact our editorial board if you are interested in giving your input in our publications. We are having a Pakistan Civil Engineer magazine and a newsletter. Newsletter is fortnightly. Magazine is once a month. Yes. It is a quarterly magazine. So Rizwan Mirza, engineer Rizwan Mirza, is sitting here. He's heading our editorial board as chief editor. You can give him any input you would like regarding the magazine or the newsletter. It could be any issue, or your reporting of an issue, reporting of an incident, or you have a story concerning civil engineering. So this society, as you know, has been established to serve the civil engineers and the cause of civil engineering. Anything regarding civil engineering, please let Rizwan Mirza know about it, and inshallah, your input would be there. Now, as we are already late, I would tell you the topic today is the problem of rutting on the asphaltic roads in Punjab. And our speaker is Engineer Suhail Raza. A very brief introduction is, he's a civil engineer holding a master's degree from AIT. He did his bachelor's from UET Lahore. He has 3.5 decades of rich and diverse experience in buildings, highways, bridges, and an airport facility. In the communication and works department, Punjab, which is commonly known as CNW. He possesses a strong background in the areas of design, construction, research, and construction contract management. Mr. Raza has handled projects both under standard contract mode as well as under PPP BOT mode, which is a public-private sector-like sort of a relationship. He served on the technically challenging Lahore Ring Road project in the capacities of technical director, director contracts, and finally as chief engineer in the Lahore Ring Road Authority for more than 1 decade. In recognition of his skill and commitment, he was awarded an Excellence of Service Award and a cash reward by province in 2005-06. So this was the brief introduction. So before now, I wanted to say something else, but I think maybe after this lecture is finished, then I will tell you something if the time allows. So the floor is yours, sir. Please.
Okay. Everyone can listen comfortably. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So once again, welcome all of you to the lecture. Today's topic, as already told to you, is rutting of asphaltic pavements in Punjab. Overview, causes and remedies. Next, sir. Roads, as you know, are a vital part of infrastructure of a country. I don't know the diversity of the audience, so I have some very basic things. Senior people like you might be thinking it too basic, but I have to. Yeah. So you must understand that roads, however well built, they undergo continuous wear and tear. In a country like Pakistan, which is already finance starved, adopting rational levels of strength and durability is not always possible and easy. The reasons for appearance of distress signs also may not be appreciated by people. And commonly, they'll attribute it to the bad practices of engineers and to the bad use of materials, but it is not always so, as I will tell you in the coming slides. Next, sir. Well, J.L. McAdam was the person born in 1756, and he was a Scottish engineer, later moved to USA. He modernized the embankments, he raised the embankments to build the roads so that adequate drainage could take place. Before that, the roads were built on the surface and they were just in a flooded state all the time. He was the person who discovered that the best stone or gravel for road surfacing had to be broken down. As you know, today also we used angular crushed stone rather than the river rolled aggregate. So he was the person who really invented this. So after his name, we are familiar with waterborne macadam, the term also used to this day. Okay, J.L. macadam road beds using compacted broken with compacted smaller stones, the same phenomena or the methodology that we are using in WBM today also. Next. Okay, asphalt date back to 1824 when asphalt blocks were first placed on Champs-Élysées, the well-known commercial street of Paris, as you know. Okay, the asphalt as we see it today, that was the work of a Belgian immigrant, Edward D. Smith, at the Columbia University, USA, New York. The first use of asphalt was in New York City in the year 1877. Next year. Pakistan, let me clarify at this stage. Asphalt is the term used both for the bitumen as well as the asphaltic concrete. For today's lecture, when I say asphalt, that would mean hot mix asphalt concrete and not the bitumen. 96% of the roads in USA are asphaltic. Pakistan has, as you know, history of PSP roads, but we are switching to the asphaltic roads, alhamdulillah. And CNW also now almost, I would say, 60 to 70% roads which are major in nature, they are asphaltic now. Asphalt is obtained from process of crude oil. After obtaining all the useful material, whatever is left is made into asphalt cement for the pavement. Next, sir. Network of Pakistan. We have motorways, we have national highways, we have strategic roads, we have arterial roads. Next, sir. In the province, we have portions of the motorways, the intercity roads or the provincial roads. Then we had district roads which are now merged into provincial roads. Then we had farm to market roads, sugar cess roads, all sorts of them. Next, sir. This is a chart showing the percentage or the lengths of various categories of roads in Punjab only. This is the data of 2015-16 taken from the Punjab Development Statistics, Bureau of Statistics, Government of Punjab, and printed in the year 2017. So you can see about 51% or 39,000 kilometers are the this is the biggest percentage, farm to market, and provincial roads are 16,000 or 16,000 kilometers or 22%. Then we a portion of M2 and M3, as you know, in Punjab. Not getting any sound. Is it okay now? Okay, next. This is the next year data in the latest printed Bureau of Statistics figures. You know, all the district roads and farm to market roads, they are now merged into the provincial roads. So you see 93% of them are now called provincial roads, and the rest are the same as previous year's data. There, next, sir. Rutting, as a user, at least if not as an engineer working in the highway section, highway field, you must have seen that less to major severity, rutting is present in many roads in Punjab, especially the farm to market roads and district roads, which were already previously dealt by district governments. They are more prone to the rutting. Next. This is an ADB report of year 2006 by the Asian Development Bank. They have reported that significant section. Now I have to take these names because ADB has printed them like this. Otherwise, it would not make any sense. Significant sections of Chinod Jang Road and limited sections of Miawali Gulama Road prematurely failed in the year 2005 by developing serious rutting in the wheel tracks. But at the same time, they are confident that this was caused probably by the excess vehicle load, not by the bad use of materials or poor construction. Next, sir. We have two types of pavement commonly used. One is called flexible, the other is rigid. Flexible is further subdivided into TST roads and asphaltic concrete roads. And rigid may be with reinforcement or without reinforcement. The first was jointed plain concrete pavements and the other one called continuously reinforced concrete. This, I think we can skip this, everyone knows. Next. This is the anatomy of a flexible pavement. We have compacted subgrade of soil, subbase resting upon it, a base course which is a superior material than subbase, and that is overlaid by surface course which can be a TST, or in our case it is a asphaltic concrete, hot mix asphaltic concrete. Next, sir. Here I am showing you a brief cycle how an asphaltic road is constructed. The thing starts with making of asphalt in the asphalt plant, transported through these trucks to the site and laid through pavers, asphaltic concrete pavers. Then rolled by steel rollers and pneumatic tired rollers, and then you get this final shape as you comfortably travel on. Next, sir. Well, the performance of the pavement, largely we can categorize into these subheads. How the loading upon it is acting, is affecting it, how the materials used are affecting it, which are subdivided into the soil, as I already told you, the asphalt and additives to it, then aggregate and stabilizing agents for the aggregates. Environmental factors include moisture and temperature, of course. Temperature being the most cruel factor for the asphaltic concrete. Next, sir. Load also, excessive load also a very cruel enemy of the asphaltic surfaces. The load transmission in case of rigid and flexible pavements. The pressure bulb, as you know, in flexible pavement, the relative stiffness of the top surface is lesser than the stiffness of the underlying. Whereas in rigid pavements, the stiffness of the top surface is comparatively higher than the subbase and base material. The Americans call everything below the surface as subgrade. So we have a stiff material resting on a lesser stiff material, and in flexible pavement. So the distribution of load in rigid pavements is better, and in asphaltic pavements or the flexible pavements, it is confined to a smaller area. That is why they are more prone to damage or deterioration. Next. Other than rutting also, you know, there are so many other distresses which can affect the pavements. Cracking, deformation, deterioration, material problems, and problems associated with the seal coat. Next. This itself is a very lengthy lecture if I come to other factors. So I've just enumerated what cracking could be of the type longitudinal, fatigue, or transverse, or it can be reflective cracking if the asphalt is laid on a rigid pavement or concrete underlay. Deformation, permanent deformation of the pavement can be in the shape of rutting, or it can be a corrugation, it can be shoving, it can be depressions, overlay bumps. Similarly, deterioration, material problems, and seal coat problems. Seal coat can show you a very bad, outlook with the rock loss, segregation. Blading is a very common phenomena you must have seen in Punjab roads. Fat spots, that means localized bleeding spots or delamination. They are all distresses to the road, but our topic today, as it is confined to the rutting, so I'll not go into details. Next, sir. Okay, now coming to the actual topic now. Rutting is longitudinal surface depression that develops into the wheel paths of a flexible pavement under loads, under traffic load. So more often it is not an isolated or lone distress to the road. It is always associated with transverse displacement. Next, sir. The textbook description of the rutting is surface depression in the wheel path, pavement uplift due to shearing action occur along the sides of the rut. Ruts are particularly evident after a rain when they are filled with water and they become more dangerous. In the next slide, I'll show you what is the hazard with ruts filled with water. Driving with wheels laterally constrained by ruts, they render the vehicle out of control. Ruts filled with water, they are particularly very dangerous. They eliminate friction between tire and the road surface. This friction is, as you know, necessary for making the vehicle's movement. Next, sir. The ruts filled with water also cause a phenomena that is called aquaplaning or hydroplaning. In this, the vehicle really becomes airborne or it leaves the surface. The tire leaves the surface and it is just floating in the air and cannot be steered across the rut. Further, ruts tend to pull a vehicle towards the rut path as the driver tries to steer it out or across the rut. Next, sir. Here I am explaining what is a hydroplaning. Are you comfortably seeing it? In normal circumstances, the tire has a contact with the surface. While if it is hydroplaned, the tire has no contact with the surface and it's just floating in the air over the layer of the water. Next, sir. This is a dig in to the history where the Syracuse theater in Sicily, Italy, these ruts are still preserved. They were formed by the chariots of the elites, those were visiting the Syracuse theater. पीछे हो गया सर आगे. This is a scene from the film Ben Hur. These are the chariots which made these ruts. Next, sir. Sir. Okay. This is an important slide to tell you why. What is the role of the structure in a pavement? You want to shift? This is a dense medium, So the load distribution is almost 2 vertical to 1 horizontal or something like 63 degrees. But once this dispersion reaches the soil or subgrade, there is no dispersion and the load intensity or the stress intensity remains the same as it is at the bottom of the subbase. So this is why if you have a thinner medium here, a thinner structure, the intensity at the subgrade or the soil would be very high. And that's why subgrade rutting would take place, which is very it makes you, it doesn't leave you with any option else but to discard whole of the road and reconstruct it. Next, sir. There I am telling you the rutting could be due to asphaltic layer, in the asphaltic layer, contained within the asphaltic layer only, or it can travel down to the structure or the subgrade. So can be caused by the asphaltic layer or can be caused by the structural layer. Next, sir. This is how the measurement is taken. How do you measure the rut? The rut depth is measured at the point of maximum deflection or maximum compression. This is a center line, close to the center line, and this is close to the edge. Next, sir. Now at this point I'm showing you the real life pictures from some important roads in Punjab. I'm not going to name them, and it is really not necessary to name, but they are very important roads in northern Punjab. You can see a series of ruts present, and this is of course before the repair or remedial measures were taken. Next, sir. So another portion of the same road. We call it high severity rutting. I'll just tell you what is severity level. Next, sir. Another same road, another portion, but it has alligator cracks also. But some portion of it, you can see it has already been repaired, so which was badly damaged. Next. In this picture, you will see the rut width has been chipped, not the whole of the road width, before shimming. Shimming means filling the rut width with material, which is for remedies. Next, sir. This is a lane width chipping. And when you mill it or chip it, then you can place the overlay upon it. Next. These ruts have been repaired through shimming. You can see individual ruts and the rut width have been filled with the remedial methodology. Next. Next, sir. Okay, now there is no one global system of defining the severity of the ruts. And you should not really try to correlate the system enforced in one part of the world with another. This system I have taken from Federal Highway Authority Administration of the US and Department of Transportation. They classify the severity of rutting into high, medium, low, and negligible. Next, sir. The high severity rutting, they are more than 25 millimeter or 1 inch. And 1 inch, I mean, at the center or the middle of the rut. Next, sir. Medium severity rut is between half an inch and 1 inch. Next. Low severity rutting is between 0.2 and half an inch. And ruts which are lesser than 0.2 inch are not included in the distress calculations and recommended to be left alone. Next. Okay, now this is another system of classification. This is from the Ministry of Transportation, Ontario, Canada, and this is from their official document. I've also mentioned the section of the manual. They, instead of 4 classes, they classify into 5 classes from very slight up till very severe. Less than 6 mm, they say it's very slight, and by the naked eye, it's barely noticeable. Slight severity, ruts are between 6 mm and 13 mm, you can say 0.25 inches to half an inch. This is with or without single longitudinal crack. Then we have moderate rut, which is between some half of inch to 3/4 of an inch, and from 3/4 of an inch up to 1 inch, with or without longitudinal cracks. This is what you can see, what an observer can see at the site. And very severe when it crosses, 50 mm is about 2 inches. So they go to the limit of 2 inches. Beyond 2 inches, they call it very severe. Next, this is a single or double rutting with or without multiple longitudinal cracks or alligator cracks. Double rutting or dual rutting, I'll just show you in the next picture. I already told you it is between 0.2 inch and 0.49 inch. I think we went back. Okay. This is the picture showing you a double or dual rutting. Now, it is the relative stiffness of the asphaltic layer. Most of the time you will see one parabolic curve of rut. But if it is too weak or too thin, you may see two adjacent ruts by a set of tandem wheels or two tires on the same axle. Instead, one tire with a wider base is more recommended now in USA. Next, sir. The same manual from Ontario, Canada, Department of Transportation. They also talk about density of the rutting. Firstly, I talked about severity. Now I'm telling you the density. The last few they call when the extent is less than 10% of the total length. Intermittent when it is between 10% to 20%. And frequent rutting is when 20 to 50% of the road length is affected. The rutting is called extensive when it crosses 50% up to 80%, and over 80% whole of the road is affected. They call it throughout. Next, sir. Okay, this is yet another system of classification on Pavement Surface Condition Index, PSCI. Its roots go into Ireland, the Irish transportation system. They classify the roads on Pavement Surface Condition Index. 10 is the most durable or strongest road you can see with no visible signs of distress, and 1 is poorest or very severe deterioration. So between shades 1 and 10, there are 10 and 9, you can say they are good quality roads. Or then between 8 and 5, they are moderately damaged, and between 4 and 1, they are very poorly damaged. Next, sir. Now we should move to the probable causes. The specific causes that cause rutting, they include insufficient compaction of the pavement layers, including sub-base, base, and subgrade, and the asphalt itself. Compression of unbound layers, subgrade rutting as a result of inadequate pavement structure. As I already told, the thinner the structure, the more load would go to the subgrade, and subgrade would go on undergo rutting. Now, mixed design is a very, very delicate department. Shamim Saab is sitting here he all the time. He's doing this. So the material engineer gives you the JMF or the mixed design. So if what I have seen during my experience, the contractor would tend to adopt one JMF without noticing that the source has changed, the bitumen content has changed, and mainly the source of aggregate. It changes, but they are using the same JMF which they got approved previously on some other project. So this we have to be very careful about mixed design. During the construction phase, high asphaltic content, a layman would say if you put more asphalt, more bitumen into the asphalt, it might turn to be stronger. But rather it is, but it is almost the reverse. If you are adding more than required asphalt content, the asphaltic road would tend to develop more ruts. Excessive mineral filler, insufficient amount of angular aggregate particles. The experts would agree with me that in C&W department we are using water-bound macadam instead of aggregate-based course, which is, interlocking of the angular aggregates, and it performs very well. Next, sir.
Can you say the first two are about the same thing? Because when there is insufficient compaction of pavement layers, of course, different surface and electrical compression.
Pavement layers means asphaltic layers, asphaltic base course and asphaltic bearing course. They are in the second point. Anything can cause problem. The asphalt, okay, that would perhaps be too much into detail, but we have to have the voids into the concrete, asphaltic concrete. 97% is the most desirable compaction with reference to the GMB is what gross Marshall density. If you over compact it or if you under compact it so that there are zero voids or it is almost 100% or it is less than 97%, something like 94, 95. Both conditions are, dangerous to the asphalt concrete as far as rutting is concerned. Next, sir. Is it clear, sir? Okay, the studded tires or chains, they call mechanical wearing of the asphaltic surface, and they can also cause a wear which is very much similar to the structural rutting. But they are actually a result of mechanical dislodging of the particles due to wear and not a pavement deformation due to load. Next. Okay, now perhaps the most cruel menace is overloading of the roads. We have been trying, my colleagues in the C&W department would bear me out and agree with me that we have tried a lot to control the access, but unfortunately the axle control on provincial roads is not very effective. There are political reasons behind it. There are you can say personal reasons, vested interests of the local growers, cane growers. But this 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 is the thing which is most dangerous. The cane loaded, sugar cane loaded, 2 axle trolley, single axle trolley, of course, single axle trolley, and about 4,000 kilograms of sugar cane. It is transported from the farm to market roads, which are already uh, very meager in the structure of the road. Of course, that yes, that in a country which is already starved with the funds like Pakistan is possible. It's not possible perhaps, but if you have will, you can see the NHA has controlled it over motorways and sections of the national highways. So if you have will, you can always do it. And this is perhaps
NHA has about 2 feet thrust, whereas CAW generally is 1 feet, and they are controlling the load of.
yes. So you see the same traffic which travels on the NHA roads. The same traffic comes on our roads also. Next, sir. So by that I meant that axle control load is important not only on the NHA roads and motorways, but also on the district roads, farm to market roads, and sugar cess roads as well. Now, what does the overloading mean to the road? It is not like if you double the axle load, the damage would be doubled. In fact, it follows the fourth power rule of thumb. The rule of thumb, the damage caused by a particular road is roughly related to the load by a power of 4. Designers are sitting before me, so they would say. 18,000 is the standard axle. This is the standard axle, so I have just taken one, this is common in case of sugarcane loaded trolleys, maybe more than this. 40 up to 40 kits I have seen trolleys. So if 30,000, it is less than something like 1.5, less than 2. But the damaging effect is 7.7 times. So it is like 7.7 axles passing just by doing it 50%. Next, sir. So if I am telling you by my experience only, not the textbooks, that if only we can control this axle control, if we can enforce this regime, I think more than 70% roads can be saved. Millions of dollars, trillions of dollars, I said, is going waste due to this uncontrolled. This is the standard configuration of the trucks. You would also notice some spelling mistakes, but I have taken this. I didn't want to redo it. This is published by the NHA. This is the most dangerous thing. 2-axle single bed Bedford truck. They are confining the maximum permissible load of the gross of the vehicle. So if the configuration is like this and loads are kept within this, they say it's not going to injure the road. But one of the two things, if this is the configuration is changed from standard to non-standard or innovated, or the loads, the total laden weight of the vehicle is crossing these figures, which is normally the case on our provincial roads, then you should always expect deterioration of the road. Distress in the shape of shoving or depressions or potholes or ultimately rutting. Next, sir. Okay, this is something from the law. The Punjab Highway Ordinance 1959, it has been upgraded several times, but you know the law. It will always be called by the year of its original issuance, 1959. The section 29 of chapter 7, yes, as you said here, the act gives the power to the government to make rules. The regulation of the loading goods in vehicle or on or in the immediate vicinity of a highway, and the regulation of the design of goods vehicles, including the material and width of their tire and pressure, and the maximum load to be carried thereof. So, if the will is there, the law is present, it can always be enforced. Next. We can now classify the causes of rutting into those related with construction. It also includes manufacture and laying at the site. Then the materials themselves and the climatic, as I told you, the moisture and that pressure are the enemies of the road. Traffic related and design related problems. I'll go one by one. We are left with enough time. Huh? Okay. We can work from, perhaps it is from a manual of transportation, Department of Transportation of California, it's called Caltrans. So they classify the probable causes into 4 or 5 categories. Those related to construction, those related to material, climatic, the traffics, and the design, which is in the infrastructure. And at the bottom, you would see these filled circles means they are common causes of distress. They should be really looked into. These circles which are empty, they are occasional causes of distress. Next, I have just rotated it into parts. Next slide. These are the causes related to the construction. You can say low strength or low stability mix, poor mix gradation, high content of asphalt, low air void content. As I already told, over compaction is also very dangerous for the road. Now these are lesser severe or lesser evils than low thicknesses and poor subgrade compaction. They are also severe causes of the next.
Where there are no.
Where they are no, they don't. This particular, they are not contributing to the rutting issues. They contribute to other distresses, but not to that. Okay, next. No, one slide there. I had some, yeah.
Yes.
Materials, low asphaltic binder viscosity and temperature, susceptible asphalt binder. Yes, the thing is these are the major factors which are contributing. Climatic, high exposure to moisture and high exposure to temperature are known to cause deterioration of the next one. High easel volumes. Well, I think they are not familiar with the term of uncontrolled load. They are not included that category, but this is high easel volume, of course. hire the agents on the road, hired it to the written. If I would have made it for Punjab, I must have included most cruel enemy, which is uncontrolled accident. Okay, exposure to studded tire, as I showed you in the previous picture. The studded tires which are used in the snow affected areas, they are causing mechanical repair of mechanical damage to the road.
Is the tires very used in our country also not remember.
Chains, they normally put chains around, but chains are not that dangerous, but studded. Snow is not, snow is not widespread problem in our country. But in Western countries, many states, like the United States, this is a very, their roads are exposed to the use of studded tires and so badly damaged. Okay, design category has inadequate pavement structure. If you don't put the required structural number, you are inviting cutting, and then drainage, as you know, standing water on the road is the permanent cause of deterioration, not only Rutting, so many other factors. Next, sir. The same construction factors which are high severity factors. Low strength or low stability mix, poor mix gradation, high asphalt content, too high or too layer air voids content, low hot mix asphaltic concrete thicknesses, and poor separator impact. Next. What is your one slide back? What are the experiences of audience? What do you think has been the most cruel factor in your observation? Is it the compaction or loading or?
I don't think आपको कह सकता है कि कंपैक्शन से पंजाब में कोई रोड फेल ही हो गई अस्पॉट 97 है अगर 95 पे फेल ही होती है बहुत मुश्किल होती है अब कोई कंसोलिडेटेड 99% पे प्रॉब्लम होता है I think that if compaction is low and it gets moist somehow then the problem can be there.
Subgrade compaction is for us is very critical.
Vertical strain आता है vertical strain वो नीचे सारा
subgrade
will lose strength low compaction and it gets somehow saturated
That's right.
with high moisture.
Slightly lower structural number is not going to affect the
Subgrades normally attributed to about 7 to 8% of the
cost.
Stand. Remaining is taken up by the structure.
Yes, of course.
So, subgrade compaction does not, I mean, if it is broadly, there's a gap. I mean, if it is hardly 85%, then it will affect. Otherwise, if it is 90 or 92%, it is not going to affect. Because it is a very, very small percentage of the load it is.
Provided there is sufficient thickness of gravel.
Exactly.
ताकि उसका load
If the structure layer are
90 भी लगेगी 90 भी 50 जाएगी
structure layer are adequately.
Okay, we can discuss it. Question answer session. Construction causes of material causes, I told you while we were saying the low asphalt binder, viscosity, temperature susceptible asphalt binder, climatic factors include temperature, which affects it most, and height is a volume and exposure to studded. I think we have discussed it. Next. Okay, so what should we do? The best thing is that we should not let the ruts happen. That's my advice. Do it right the first time. No, not now. ये बताएंगे किसकी कोई 7,000
Yes.
So there was a study undertaken by the Strategic Highway Research Program of Federal Highway Administration in the US. Spanned over 6 years. High cost of multi-million project costing more than 50 million US dollars. And they came up with an idea of superior to farming asphalt pavements, which is called super pave. This system encompasses 3 main areas. The best thing that they came up with was a performance grade, which in another binder. Performance grade asphalt binder. Usually we have penetration grade, which we normally use in Pakistan. Volumetric mix design, mix analysis, performance prediction. And the most important product, as I told you, was the performance grade asphaltic binder.
Department ने कभी कहा है आपको पूछा है रिफाइनरीज को के पीटी आस्क नहीं ना
हमने पता किया था नहीं बनाते
ये बनाते
इतनी अगर डिमांड आपने पूरे साल की अपना एनुअल बजट है आपका उसके बाद से आप
But this is what we have to fix. I'm sure in the next 2, 3, 5 years,
performance grade
we have to leave this normal.
एक्सपर्टीज ये हमने फ्रेंड बनाई उसके लिए मेरे पास
We should make
पायलट पॉइंट्स का आप इस्तेमाल करते हैं
we should make trial sections, and we should not really blindly follow the recommendations of the Western countries, and we should have our own research on this. Next, sir. The range of the temperature next within which the binder will meet performance criteria is very vast in performance grade. Like a PG64 -22 binder will meet performance criteria at all temperatures between 64 degrees centigrade and 22 degrees below freezing. Gyratory compactor is a new concept associated with the super pave. It is intended to help predict pavement performance as it would really be in the real life. Simulate the effect of traffic on asphalt pavement in the laboratory. So instead of Marshall specimen, you are using the gyratory compactor. And the research which I told you, spanning over 6 years, that showed very promising performance against rutting control. So my prediction is that we will have to, famous consultants like Nespark or others, they have to take the lead role and switch over to this. Next. Yeah. Of course.
and some agency
Hmm. No, sorry. I'm not saying they should fund it, of course. That's right. I just wanted to point out that they should take a lead role and they should begin suggesting at least to the P&D department or the decision makers, or the high-ups. Next, sir. If the road has rutted to a very high severity or heavily rutted, you need not to blindly just jump to the conclusions and start making remedies. It has to be investigated thoroughly to determine the root cause of the failure, whether it is present only in the asphaltic pavement or down to the structural layers or down below to the subgrade or soil. Insufficient compaction, structural damage in the lower layers, poor mix design or studded tire wear what has actually caused the wear. Then you can put in the real remedy. Slight ruts can generally be left untreated, as I told you, less than 6 mm or 0.2 inches, they can be left untreated. Next. You remember I showed you this table, the system based on PSCI from 1 to 10, 1 being the poorest and 10 being the strongest or the good surface condition road. I have put this again side by side so that I can tell you what the same urban flexible road manual of the Ireland, they suggest the remedies. If the roads are in good condition, like 10 and 9 category, they are well kept by routine maintenance. If the PSCI is between 7 and 8, resealing and restoration of skid resistance. Resealing means a seal coat. We normally do it here in Pakistan also. If it is gone down to 5 or 6, which is these two categories, then surface restoration, localized repairs and treatment with surface treatment or thin overlays that can make the surface rideable again. While between 3 and 4, a structural overlay is required to strengthen roads, localized patching and repairs. If it is very poor, then perhaps reconstruction is the only solution which is left. Next. This is again a very useful table, handy, based on the same manual from the Ministry of Transportation, Ontario. I'm sorry I'm giving too much examples from the West because we don't have any standardized manual or code suggesting such remedies or such indices. On the horizontal scale, we have severity as already told in the preceding table, and on the vertical columns, we are having the diversity or the scatter of the how frequent is the problem of rutting in the road. So in the first two categories, you can just, they suggest if the rutting is very slight to slight, you can just leave it. If the rutting is in the moderate severity, then they say from machine chip seal or machine patching up to, if it is scattered throughout, then up to cold milling with hot mix resurfacing. And similarly, you can see if the severity is also severe and the extent is also scattered throughout the road, then rehabilitation perhaps is the only solution left. And in between there are shades you can see. You can choose. The important thing is that you have to the designer and the site engineer together, they have to decide. One remedy cannot be given for every situation and every road. So you have to decide, seeing the situation, root causes, and of course the available funds, they are the main factor. Next, sir. The remedies, as I already talked about, they can be split into two categories, whether the causes are only present in the asphaltic layer or they have gone down to the structural layers also. If they are only in the asphaltic layers, then you can choose between, again, seeing the extent of distress and your funds available, between full depth, full width repair and rut width repair. If you have to carry out full width repair, it involves full width milling and replacement, or you can choose full width overlay, or you can remove the asphaltic layer and relay.
So overlay करेंगे तो special gas का भी chance होता है.
That's what I said. You have to decide it on the available data and the results of the investigation that you took at the site. And if it is to be confined only to the rut width due to severity being low or due to scarcity of the funds, then you can have milling only in the rut width and replace that portion. Or you can just have shimming or filling of those ruts if they are not very wide scattered. If it is caused by the structural layers, on the other hand, then structural layer, structural repair would be needed. If it is down to the sub base, then you have to put everything out and restart with the sub base. Next. That's right. Scatter. That's right. That's right. As I showed you in the previous tables. Next, sir. Asphaltic layer. If the problem is confined to the asphaltic layer only, then you can decide between rut width repair or full width repair. If it is just confined to rut width, it is not prophylactic in nature. I mean, it is not addressing the other distresses or the other damages that are associated or they are just to come. Say, if you are doing it after 5 years, you can make expenditure on the rut width repair, but in the next year or 2 years after, you can have crocodile cracking, you can have depression, you can have raveling, you can have shoving. So of course, full width repair, that will cater for the other distresses or those distresses which are not present at the moment, but they are about to come. Next, sir. What are the commonly used repair materials? 1 inch to 1.5 inch overlay is the common remedy, which is adopted here also, Use of new and expensive rut-resistant asphaltic materials may reduce the required overlay thickness. New slurry asphalt materials may reduce the required thickness to about 1/2 inch, or even if smaller size aggregates are used, they can reduce the thickness to 3/8 inch. We are not using it, so I won't really recommend that we should blindly get on to these high-fi materials. But again, research and development is required before we can adopt it in our local environment. Next. Okay, these are again, just I am giving you an idea. Of course, nobody has used it here, but the advanced countries, they are already using microsurfacing for the remedies, which is a thin slurry or asphaltic slurry or ultra thin bonded wearing surface, which include thin hot mix asphalt concrete and Portland cement concrete overlays. Stone matrix asphalt pavements, post textured hot asphalt concrete pavements. These are other than the normal overlay material which we commonly use here. Rut resistant conventional hot asphalt mixes, which include modifications to the conventional asphalt by certain additives or yes, additives to the asphalt. Next, okay. Now the decision making. If you are going to, asphalt is a very costly material. You are going to make remedy, so you have to take decision. If you put good material over existing poor material, it is going to be waste, as you know. So before placing overlays, you have to get yourself assured that your structure down below and compactions, they are good enough that they will sustain this. Proposed new multi-layered system shall be designed employing a suitable design method if one can be found. Most of the things in countries like us would depend upon the economics, The comparative economic analysis, how much you are spending and initial cost versus the recurring cost, that analysis is always, to be made before incurring an expenditure on remedy. Comparative economic analysis of various interventions often shall be undertaken. New materials may be evaluated on the basis of proven success. But as I have repeatedly been saying, don't go blindly for using them. Whenever you are in doubt, instead of making experiments, make control sections of say 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers and maybe test it for 2 to 5 years before adopting it on the entire road. Next, sir. This is again a decision-making chart, whether the kind of distress, of course, this will depend upon the experience of the engineer who's making decision, whether it can be neglected. If they are not so severe or they are negligible, you can neglect them and continue to monitor the road. But if it is entered into that stage where it needs some intervention, then you will see whether it is initiated by the asphaltic layer or the problem lies elsewhere. If it is in the asphaltic layer, note other distress signs and compare alternatives. Undertake rational design exercise or undertake economic comparison. If it is not in the asphaltic layer, so the engineer has to decide whether it can be handled by intervention at the top. If yes, then you have to adopt this methodology. And if it is not, then full width intervention or maybe redoing of the road would be required. Next, sir. So, summary to the today's talk. Asphaltic roads require extreme care at all stages of design and construction. However well designed and well constructed a road may be, it needs continuous monitoring and maintenance. If you save small amounts to be incurred on maintenance, you will have to incur heavy costs on redoing or remedy of the distress that would occur later on. Rutting is a major distress that may lead to accidents. Remedies must be undertaken after proper investigation and diagnosis of the causes. And just by naked observation by the unskilled or untrained engineer should not be started. Prophylactic role of surface remedies should be considered. That means if you are putting small amount on just a rut width repair or the localized patch repair, will it go for a year or two and then other factors will really force you for a relay or the full width repair in the later years. Why not to do it now if the funds allow? Remedies are often costly and distress shall best be avoided. As I already told you, the best thing is that do the right thing in the first instance or the first time. That is the ideal solution. Because if you leave flaws, if you don't follow the specifications or the good engineering practices, you are apt to face a difficult situation later on. Next, sir. By this, I thank you, sir. And now we can share experiences if we have time, and then we can have questions that you may like to ask. Mm. Unfortunately, we don't have data. I tried to find it out from the department, but we are not maintaining it. But NHA has, in the year 2003, they reported that less than 6% of their roads, the national highway roads, less than 6% are severely rutted. About 23% are rutted between negligible and moderate, and about 62% or whatever left, they are rut free. In my experience, as I have already served in the CNW department and Road Research and Material Testing Institute, which is responsible for evaluation of roads and making visits and inquiries throughout Punjab also. I really, not as a spokesperson of the department, but I'm unbiasedly telling you that severe rutting problem is very, very less. And I showed you some photographs. These such things, such level of distress is not found very often. I have seen mild rutting is there, moderate rutting might be there, but they are repaired and made to good surface if the funds are available. I would say poor subgrade compaction and uncontrolled axle load are the two big causes, to my experience. And in those two also, the uncontrolled axle load, that is perhaps the major, most important one. Yes, sir. Dr. Sir.
Can we implement the zoning of Punjab instead of using 80-100 or 60-70 everywhere?
I would really like to switch to the super wave concept, performance grade binders, but I'm going to give you my personal. This is not from any book or the thickness of the asphalt. If it is too high a figure, you are going to invite problems. To my experience, a 12.5 centimeter or 5 inches layer is sufficiently enough. Hassan Saab is sitting, he is a good pavement designer. But the thinner does not mean it is something like 2 inch or 3 inch. 4.5 to 5 inches is a sufficiently good thickness for our roads. The deficiency in structural number should be met with by increasing the good quality base rather than having a very thick asphaltic layers. But if you are following ASTO, they might give you something like 21 centimeters or 22 centimeters.
In my experience as a designer,
Yeah.
if you are compromising on the thickness of asphalt, then you have an option to go for the double game. That will take us there.
Of course.
But for aggregate base course, you have to follow the actual standard. Check.
I am a big advocate of the waterborne macadam. Myself and Shimim Sab fought on the Lahore Ring Road
Well, it's not,
with the contractor.
By
And,
contractors want progress. Like, have to do. They
Hmm.
want quick.
of course, but my 30 years of experience was telling me that we are bound to have problems if we go for the asphaltic base course, aggregate base course.
One thing which never considered talking point of the now the normal talking point is
Right.
but the temperature in most of the southern part of
Hmm.
those temperatures is above 30. Now, as soon as
Yeah.
the temperature is cutting starts,
Right.
it's faulty layers. I'm not talking about the structural layers. Now we have done no work on improving the softening point of this bitumen. Now one thing when we add the fine, the softening point is increased from 51 to 55, 56, but it cannot be increased to above 70. Now limestone color, stone that which we use from limestone that has a fine which is that
That's from Sargodha quarry.
no, that's from other, not from the
I see.
Sargodha queries, they are because they are of metamorphic origin.
Nah.
The fines are not so fine that it will have the tiny plant I'm talking about, which is sometimes goes up to 65 and 70. This is not favorable for asphalt. Now, why we don't add in specification to add some additive in asphalt that increases the softening point of the business. At Ring Road, we have company from Germany, I think.
HMA?
No, it was Asphaltic. And when that additive was added, the softening point raised to 83. And that is what is needed for to stop this rutting. Because we cannot, as we have said, stop the overloading. We can improve the export mix, we can improve the bitumen content, we can improve the workability. So why we are not going to that direction that to improve the quality of the bitumen and quality of the
It does not require huge finances. And it's cost effective.
It does not require
PG, you cannot range PG, but you can do that. And it takes
it is difficult to produce.
I find myself a student in front of you. As far as materials are concerned, of course, your observation is very well taken and it really carries lot of weight. But I would say the best institute or the organization that was meant for this kind of research was Road Research and Material Testing Institute.
That should take
It is so.
that should take the lead in this matter.
When I was director there, probably for the 3 continuous years, I had been launching a scheme for arranging the funds, but we are not provided. I'm not blaming you, no, we are already starved with. We are not working on. Yes, I admit there's a lot of deficiency in research and. Sir. Which road are you talking of? Hmm. It goes via which cities? Oh, it's a national highway. Yeah.
तो वहाँ पे आप जब देखेंगे स्लेयर रटेंगे और स्पॉट इज ग्रीन
Yeah,
उसके बाद इवन अगर आप लोग ढूंढ लेंगे जाएं तो आप हाथ से भी जो है स्पॉट को उतनी सॉफ्ट होती है आपसे
of course, of course.
तो उसमें जो रटेंगे सर अप टू 3 इंचेस तो मैंने खुद उसको मेजर किया है तो वो तकरीबन
It is unusable.
इट्स
It's a cause of fatal accidents, of course.
तो ये तकरीबन लास्ट 5 इयर्स
Yeah.
आप जहाँ पे काम स्टार्ट हुआ है तो हमने जो रिसर्च की थी दूसरा एक इशू ये है कि डिस्टेंट डेवलपमेंट डिपार्टमेंट तो वो कॉपरेट भी नहीं कर रहा था ना वो हमें कोई रिकॉर्ड दे रहा था ना कोई डेटा
It's a national highway.
जैसे नेशनल
So it is controlled by NHA or provincial road. Ah, I see.
और उसमें सर मैं कुछ एग्री करूंगा कि हम रिसर्च के ऊपर तो रिसर्च कर रहे हैं
Right.
डॉक्यूमेंट पॉइंट और जो क्वालिटी है उसके ऊपर भी रिसर्च है दूसरा जो जोनिंग की बात की थी कि वो जैसे मार्क पैरामीट्रिक एरिया है तो उसके अंदर भी हमें आईपी के स्पेसिफिकेशन को रिवाइज करना चाहिए नहीं हुआ
Totally agreed. Totally agreed. No second opinion. Right. Hmm. I can only say sorry for this. We are all engineers and we are all, in our capacity as much as possible, we should take steps forward.
वो उन पीपल को वजह से ही हमारी रोड की वजह से प्रॉपर क्योरिंग टाइम प्रॉपर टाइम पे देना चाहिए
This is the cause I was avoiding ABC because they won't mix it in a pug mill and they won't give it the proper time to be laid. Yes, you are right. Yeah. Anything else would nobody is going to give the engineers proper planning time. They would just like to start the project next morning. Say,
कोशिश कर रहा है काफी कोशिश कर रहा है कि आप बिजनेस को डिस्ट्रीब्यूटिंग पावर दें फैक्ट्रीज और जितने भी आपके टेक्निकल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है दे शुड बी हैंडल्ड बाय इंजीनियर्स ट्राई तो कर रहे हैं
आपको पता है कि आपका जो सिविल सर्विस का स्ट्रक्चर है वो आपका तो सीएस का एक चीज बनेगा या दो या चार लेकिन जो आपका सीएस स्ट्रक्चर है वो गवर्निंग है वो अगर 50 आए तो 50 जाएगा ग्रेड 20 में ग्रेड वो आपको जो जाने नहीं देंगे क्योंकि उनको हर वक्त पोस्टिंग चाहिए होती है आप ये एक पोस्ट देते हैं कुछ भी वो बदला करके बैठ गए और ये भी बहुत पास है
we are live on the Facebook. Sir.
And those using graded aggregate basis. Here's the problem of medical that's clear. Are medical based schools more popular in the advanced countries or graded? If they are going to graded, why we want to carry out research and to find out that medical based is better or less better?
I don't have any data right here, but I can very strongly and very vehemently recommend usage of macadam-based waterbound macadam as the base course. The West is using aggregate base course, no, no doubt, but they have a lot of quality control. And I would say the engineering practices are better. So I have, in my experience, seen that wherever we have used waterborne macadam, the roads have behaved well. I already said I am a big advocate of the waterborne macadam.
Agri-waste, you can have very good quality control, exact quality control on agri-waste, but then we need to, as I said earlier, you have a full depth of spot and you have control the exit road, which we cannot do.
Why we can
But for aggregate waste food,
You need thousands of base stations on our roads, not our roads.
this is network building of road and the word is building successful aggregate. Why we can
एक और exercise जो former level of the colleagues and junior employees, they should do an exercise of economic analysis of controlling the roads versus repairing the roads. आप damage roads हो रही हैं, ठीक है. आप कहते हैं फोर रोड ज्यादा है. इसका क्या लाभ है? इसका लाभ ये है कि रोड कट गया, 3 ट्रक उस तीसरे ट्रक की बोर्ड क्रॉस, उसकी रनिंग क्रॉस, उसकी ड्राइवरी क्रॉस, वो सारी क्रॉस के बीच में डाले हैं. Then prove that the third truck is cheaper than repairing the road for only 2 trucks. इसलिए एक्सरसाइज की
एक्सरसाइज बेसिकली की के मुझे हार्ड हुआ है कि मैं साउथ में कुछ देर में वहाँ पे सिर्फ इंडिया खान जो एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट है उसके अंदर 7 शुगर और सारा जो गन्ना है वो फार्म से आना है, खेत से आना है. उस खेत से जो सड़क आपको मेन रोड तक ले कर रही है उसकी सड़क है. आप वहाँ पे रोड कंट्रोल करके दिखा दें मुझे एक दिन के लिए.
वो तो राइट हो जाए.
नहीं तो उधर आपने
5 मिनट के लिए आप ट्रॉली रोक के दिखा दें.
वहाँ solution ये है कि strong सड़क बनाए. That is the solution in a particular pocket.
And that's the problem. वहाँ पे आपका जो इकोनॉमिक्स है मेन पार्ट ये करता है कि गवर्नमेंट आपको 24 इंच का सेक्टर बनाने की इजाजत देती है. आपकी ये सारी चीजें जो आपस में ऐसे इंटरकनेक्टेड है ऐसे जगह पे हमने एक तो मेन रोड है उसको हमने रोकने की कोशिश की. हाईकोर्ट के अंदर 10 रिटें होगी हमारी एक दिन के अंदर, एक दिन में 10 रिटें होगी हाईकोर्ट. लेकिन आप रोक कैसे सकते हैं हमारा?
So the problem is very deep rooted. It's not only engineering. It's a social. It's a social.
They can buy out cities. Sorry, I couldn't look at it. That's not good. They are playing their part. They are harassing you. झगड़ा करते हैं, लड़ाइयाँ करते हैं, और उन्हें खुलवा दिया होगा. वो हम नहीं कंट्रोल करते.
जैसे कि आप खर्चा करें, improve करें कंस्ट्रक्शन को, जो
ये बड़ा कॉन्टिन्यूस प्रोसीजर है और इसके अंदर बड़ी हेल्प चाहिए लोकल अथॉरिटीज की, लोकल पॉलिटिशियंस की, लोकल पब्लिक की, और उसको क्लियर करें. ये थोड़ी सी कॉस्ट है, ये ओवरऑल हमारा फायदा है इसके अंदर, उसका फायदा है.
शुगर सेशन कितने पैसे लेते हैं? शुगर सेशन पैसे नहीं लेते, रोड पे लगाएं.
They are also now provincial roads.
ज्यादा अमाउंट नहीं है, थोड़ी होगी.
फिर वो भी उसके लिए फिर उनके पास इतने ऑलरेडी प्रोग्राम होते हैं पहले ही उनको पहली रोड को ठीक करना है और आगे लेके जानी है रोड फार्म के अंदर उनके सारे फार्म को आपने कनेक्ट करना है.
एक आपका जो है फीलिंग को एक्सपीरियंस दैट इज व्हाट
Dry bound means how would you compact the layer? I'm not clear. I'm not clear of the question. I think without bringing it to the optimum moisture content, the compacting effort is going to be tremendous. I don't have experience. And what advantage we are going to get out of it? Why are you avoiding to use water? I have no experience. No, sorry. That's right. But the waterborne macadam is always. That's exactly what is. That's what Mohsin is telling. It's exactly what is being done. But when you will fill it with the stone dust or khaka, and you need water slurry to make it into a slurry and get into the stitches and crevices. You cannot have a compacted mass, I think, without adding water to it. But this is a good food for thought. I can search the textbooks whether it has been practiced elsewhere in the world or not. Maybe. I think the compacting effort would be tremendous. If you have to bring it to the 100% compaction level. Yes. We do only dry, but before adding khaka or stone dust, that brings the voids to a minimum. क्या आ रहे हैं? Rutting is particularly along the central line of the road, longitudinal. The transverse ripples are not called ruts, but they are a distress, of course. Yes, another kind of distress. It has to be taken care of. I think bad workmanship would be the only answer. 2-3 दिन में तो मैं नहीं समझता कोई दुनिया की बुरे से बुरा भी material. Bad workmanship would be a factor, I think. TST रोड की बात कर रहे हैं या asphalt की? नहीं, but June July is the best period to carry on the TST. जून कम टेम्परेचर पे तो TST हो नहीं सकती. वाटर बाउंड के ऊपर है TST. जी प्लीज सर. जी.
If there are no other questions, and before we close, we will be distributing the certificates for attendees. And before I do so, I would again request that all of you should now come forward and play your role in the society and help us to make this society more and more dynamic, and so that the society can really play its role for the civil engineers, for the betterment of civil engineers and civil engineers. I would also like to thank you that you have patiently heard our speakers and their interactive session was really very nice and informative. And I hope you have also enjoyed So we close down the session, Ji, and Before I do so, we will distribute the certificates. दे दो मुझे. So I think I will personally come to the lady or the gentleman who's sitting because of the space. Mr. Mudassar Ali. No, beta. Thank you. Mr. Usman Haider. Okay. Mr. Adil Mumtaz. Mr. Shamim, is it Mrs. or Shamim Zafar? I say Shamim Zafar. लिखा नहीं ना हुआ था, I was Mr. Rohil Beg, Mr. Hassan Mahmood, Mr. Faisal Gulzar, Miss Amna Chaudhary, Mr. Bilal Mohyuddin, thank you, ji. Miss Amara Shah, Mr. Allah Ditta, Mr. Usman Hamid, Mr. Kamar Ali Zaidi. Huh? अच्छा अच्छा वो अच्छा जी, one last thing ji, hopefully we'll receive our CPD approval from PEC, let's say within 2 weeks, hopefully. So our next lecture would count CPD points for the engineers who need it. Okay ji? Inspection was completed by PEC last Friday, and the committee members who came here, they have approved PSC for holding CPD lectures, and I think they have approved us for 10 years. And inshallah ji, next time inshallah CPD points will be counted ji. Yes, congratulations. Sorry, Suhail Raza, I forgot there's a small gift for you as well from the society. हाँ जी sir. I'm so sorry ji. Thank you ji. Thank you ji. So ji, I would also request you that whatever we are doing, whatever you know about the society, please propagate to your friends as well. Or there's not a very, high fee. It's 1,000 rupees as for an associate per annum and 250 for student associates per annum. So the fees is not much. Inshallah ji, as the time will pass, the society will serve the community, inshallah, in much and much better way ji. Thank you very much sir. So you can join us for the tea sir. Thank you. आइए जी. दरवाजा जो है ना उसको